My friend. Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer.
Hi.
I'm your host, Rob. This is the Age of Sigmar Stat Center with my co-host, Mr. Owen Jackson. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Hello, Mr. Rob Symes. How are you, sir? Are you well?
I'm great. I'm great. Hopefully, because at the end of today, I won't have to say either the words Tzeentch, Archeon, Kairos, or Hos Arcanum again for a while, or at least for 6 to 8 hours. That's what I'm hoping.
I think Prop Joe might have called it here, actually. He's saying that he's heard on the grapevine that Tzeentch, Seraphon, and Daughters are breaking away from AOS and forming their own Warhammer Super League. So I don't think we're going to need to talk about them because they're going to be operating on a different plane. We're just going to be saying the words more tribes, Sylvaner,
Cities.
Nighthaunt. Yeah. Oh, look. No, we're going to be saying, he failed the charge because he rolled the dice. That's going to be, that's going to be one of the many things we say. Anyway. But yeah, here we are, Monday morning.
No,
again.
I love that idea. If anyone isn't quite caught up on that joke, because it's a great one, a couple of British football leagues along with, and I don't know anything about football. Thank you, Dan Brook, for resubscribing. Hope your foot's better. I don't know much about it, but they've all left. They've been backed by a bank called JP Morgan, who are like, by the way, interestingly, JP Morgan's, over the past 15 years have washed over $2 trillion of drug money. Through different businesses. Little side note, I do keep track sometimes of the financials, but I know it's in Age of Sigmar Stat Center, but I love it. And Owen said I could talk about what I liked anyway, so he's like, no one cares that you talk about Age of Sigmar, Rob, so just talk what you like about. An embezzling company. But anyway, they've broken away. They paid a bunch of like big clubs to form their own Super League. The suggestion, I thought I saw it yesterday from, I think it was Iron Gutsman I saw on Twitter, obviously Tweet to Save Lives. He said on Twitter, he was like, we should just get them to play their own game. Owen, thoughts on not the Fat Middle tournament, but the super, well, I don't know what we would call it, the breakaway tournament. How do you feel?
I mean, there are certain armies that tend to play their own game now anyway, right? So maybe it's just a natural progression. I'm not sure. I'd like to think there's less money in Warhammer than there is in Elite Football. So perhaps we're not quite as corrupted as the beautiful game yet. The more beautiful nerd game will stay pure. We just need to get some FAQs and some points tweets, perhaps. That's probably my solution.
We'll talk about more. We'll talk about that more. So we're going to be talking about the results from Hammer Time 8 today and some of the stats and the breakdowns. Again, no other events really knocking around that we know of, I don't think. And we are going to be talking to the Twitch chat. Hello, everyone in the Twitch chat. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Deep Harrow for resubscribing. Dreadwoods, Iron Gutsman, Forgive, Dan Brook, Plymouth Troll Slayers, love you. Nikos, what's going on? Guys ID, who played his first event this weekend. Very excited about that. You're all wonderful people. Thanks for being here. If you listen to the podcast, do stay hydrated. It's start of a new week. I know that's a bit of a day, but you do get to do it with the Owen Jackson. So get some Owen fan emotes in the chat. Owen, so the only event we've had this weekend so far, I think, is Hammer Time 8. I don't think there are any other events, or am I wrong?
I mean, I'm sure that there were some odds and sods around, or maybe even some big tournaments, but not that we're aware of. So we can deep dive on the weekend, really, if you'd like to.
I would like to.
It was an interesting event. It felt like another progression of TTS in a way. Lots of new players and stuff, and then some really interesting talking points. So I think that we can waffle on for a while, and if people in the chat have got any, I can see from the names there's quite a lot of the players, so if peeps want to sort of chip in with their thoughts on the weekend and stuff that they learned, then let's dig in. And
yeah, I mean, fans of the show, last week you'd have heard me talking about the stats, so I went through the stats earlier in the week with Ziggy. We're still filling in all the stats. We're trying to backdate the stats and make it quite full. We've got like 7 or 8 events in there at the moment. We're going to put a few more in there. And then there's some really interesting stuff that I know we're going to cover a little bit from just this event today that Owen's done. So probably I'm aiming for next Monday. That's going to be a show where we're going to look through some really key points. Specifically, I think one of the very interesting elements is if you look at the breakdown for sub-faction between armies. And then, this is key, Owen, I did a really, really big deep dive, actually. Again, it was only across 7 tournaments, but this is all for next week, but a bit of a precursor. We did a deep dive about how different armies did on different battle plans, because that's some of the stuff that we're trying to track in the future. And fascinating, because there are some, like, you play this game a lot, Owen, I cover this game a lot, like, we're very involved, And what's interesting is looking at the win rates and then saying to yourself, I wonder how, like, I know that they do well on those battle plans. As an example, like I know those battle plans are really, really good. Like there wasn't much data, for instance, for Sons of Behemoth, but you immediately go focal points. Their average win rate's higher on focal points than it is somewhere else. And some of those battle plans are fascinating because you can just click Scorched Earth and you can just see who's doing the best. And I love that. That's going to be some really fun data to do next week. So just it's taken a while. I've got an amazing team, so thanks to all the guys. So Math Mallow, sorry again, Colonel Cabbage, Pete. Just an amazing group of people who are filling in loads of data. So you're all wonderful. Thanks very much. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up because it's going to be a fun week next week, Owen.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say one thing as well. It is pretty mad. Like, I think Age of Sigmar as a game is just this wild animal. And we're constantly trying to tame it and understand it through, like, all of the information and the data and the stuff that we do here. But then it still appears to have a life of its own and go off in mad directions. And it's like that Ripples thing, isn't it? One little tweak to one war scroll or set of points here, and then it ripples out and affects all the game. And I think, trying to understand it is difficult. But we do the best we can, don't we, Rob? We do. And actually, some of it, as we lead into some of the key talking points for Hammer Time, which Owen's going to talk about now. We talked a lot of these. We've kind of started to track it through the Stat Center. Like, not only is it just stats, not the information, but there's also trends, right? Like the rise of Archeon, and that's going to be one of the main conversations from again. But you guys who've been listening to the Stat Center, if you go back 6 months, we were talking about it, like, look, he's a perfect meta pick. Into Seraphon plays really well. Into Lumineth plays really well. Like, loads of really, really good conversations about why. Specifically the reroll sixes, but then that pushes people I know to start running more Wither Staves. Like, there's key rules, and when you can talk about, and it's a really, like, so fun. So yeah, like seeing these trends and seeing how, and they are untamable, because then you've got people like Corey's Gambit over there, just like absolutely breaking stuff, like with Daughters of Cain previous, and we've still got more books to come. You know, Slaves to Darkness changes inherently now because of Be'lakor, so very exciting times in the future. Owen, Hammer Time 8, talk to me about it. What we got? So we had a lot of players to start with, and then we had quite a few drops, but we ended up settling on about 70 players over the weekend. I need to get some stats on the quantity of different nationalities, but there seem to be, we seem to have players from all over the world. It was really diverse meta and all sorts of different players and like little groups. We had like the Pete Pratt and the Northern Irish guys had a little contingent, and after every game you'd see them hanging out in their own little chat together. I think they were all mainly wishing that they wanted to all do better than Archie, but I think actually Archie might have won top Northern Irish player. Anyway, as an aside, so yeah, we had 70 players. Archie. Yeah. We had 70 players. Yeah, he played a game against a Khorne player, and it was mental. They were just swearing at each other, and it was wonderful.
By the way, anyway, like when COVID's over, I've basically got about 4 or 5 places that I haven't been to other places yet where I would 100% play Warhammer. Ireland, north or south, doesn't matter. Like, they're all insane. Sweden, Australia, those guys all fuck. That's what I'm going to say. Great fun. Canada also. But I didn't get to play there, so little side note. But yeah, great people. Sorry, Owen, after you.
Ah, you're okay, man. You're good. And yeah, there seemed to be a big contingent of French players for the first time, which was great. And they had a very sort of distinctive list styles. And then you just had a lot of the usual suspects that come to a lot of these TTS tournaments, the sort of the TTS hardcore. They ended up all doing pretty well. But there was one big thing. I mean, we've promised between us, Rob, to not mention the word Zeech and Archeon too much. But he's the sort of headline star. So we thought that we'd maybe have a look at how all of those did into their different matchups and different missions. But it's not all about them. I think, we can't not talk about Mac, which is Marcus, going 5-0 with his Caradron Overlords.
Amazing.
We had good results with Daughters of Cain and Seraphon. And then, just conversations around the strength of different books. I thought the Destruction players all seemed to be having a great time. But there was nothing better than a 3-2. And then, the Death players, 2-3 was the best Bone Reapers. But that singular Flesh Eater Courts player did really well with 3 wins, a draw, and a loss. So
I still think Flesh Eater Courts have got it. Like, I'm not saying 5-0 constantly, but I think you can play. Like, especially if, this is really important, especially if we start putting in terrain that actually blocks line of sight. If we do that, I think Flesh Eater Courts come up a whole game. Like, I really do. I think that's a kind of key takeaway. But I think Flesh Eater Courts have got all of the tools. Good magic phase, great spells, good command abilities, good utility, great pieces, free summoning. Great on the spells even. Like, we never really see it because, like, they don't have a lot of casts and all those casts are... But their spell lore's phenomenal. Their War Scroll spells are great. Like, and you can play 2 or 3 different builds, at least, in that army. They're all centered around, like, being melee, but... Like, when you can fight twice, your book's always good. That's what I'm going to say.
Also, I think Nurgle, Maggotkin of Nurgle, I would expect them... I don't know anything about book releases and stuff like that, but they're in that super sweet spot of having lots of rules split over lots of books and with old stuff interacting with new stuff. And, you know, like lots of within and not wholly within. The Nurgle players had a good weekend. We had 2 4-1s and a 3-2 for all those Blight Kings. So it was some interesting trends, and I don't know really where you want to start, Rob. Should we start with what was the top 10? Should we have a look at this, the Tzeentch Archeon overall data?
I think let's talk about the Tzeentch Archeon stuff. It's kind of one of it is the takeaway, and I'm just going to give some kind of like background for everyone at the moment for like where we've been over the past 6 months, because I'm going to ask Owen the question later on. Do you think it's like a problematic build like we saw with Slaanesh or something like Vanguard Wing? Like, do you think it's like a problematic win rate build, or do you just think it's a very good build? So we'll ask that question in a bit, and then maybe what we think about it, and then should people prep at home? But just going back kind of 6 months, 8 months, time's obviously a bit fucky in lockdown, but 8 months, we started to see like more and more Archeons played. Now, of course, if we go all the way back to Sheffield Slaughter 2019, this is before the new Tzeentch book, though, and that's very, very important. We had Mark Wildman. Oh, no, actually, no, Sheffield Slaughter 2020. No, it was 2020. Mark Wildman was running new Tzeentch book Archeon as well. We saw that on the tables playing against JJ. Great game. Some really fun stuff. And since then, it's just been developed more and more and more. And in the summer last year, a little kind of key point, Tzeentch is a very demon-focused book. It's all about the pink horrors, the flamers, the screamers, Kairos, the Lord has changed. That's the strength part of the book, ultimately. And then with the change to pink horrors and also points increase on flamers, we still saw change hosts, and we still see change hosts do very, very, very well. But we started to see people exploring using Host Arcanum Archeon more and more and more. And then with the introduction of kind of as a counter pick to Seraphon and a counter pick also to Lumineth Realm Lords. Not forgetting most of the output from Lumineth Realm Lords comes from doing mortal wounds on 6s to hit. Sixes to hit, or 5s to hit, depending. But making them re-roll those successful 6s is phenomenal for dropping down their effective power. So, and then we've seen it go from strength to strength to strength. Where at this tournament, Owen, how many did we see? 5 or 6 Tzeentch Archeons?
There were 6 Tzeentch Archeons in a total of 9 Tzeentch lists.
Wow.
5 of them were leaning into the Host Arcanum build, which seems to be the sort of the cookie cutter. And then Stuart was running Host Duplicitous. Mark Wildman's list from Slaughter was Duplicitous. So you're effectively, the choice that you've got there between the 2 slight tweaks is Host Duplicitous means that you can't retreat from Archeon, and generally you're leaning more into, a tanky version of him. So you're putting Geminids, or in Iron Gutsman's, he actually allied in Glutos or Scolion, to make -2 to hit Archeon that you can't retreat from, and you're re-rolling 6s. So if you hit on 4s, your 6s re-rolling 6s, and you just that's more of a pin them in kind of vibe. Whereas the Host Arcanum is this wicked, like mad toolbox, and has just so many incredible interactions. So also, Gutsman, one point that Luke's made in the chat there is also for the spell, so you're able to heal him back up. And I think that goes to the heart of what makes him so strong, is that Archeon has all the keywords. So, myself and Morton Winkle, we've been putting him into Khorne. Certain players have been trying to get him to work in Slaanesh. You don't really see them in Nurgle, but basically the Tzeentch build often with Archeon and Kairos as the little double team, and then a little small wizard, a Chaos Sorcerer Lord always. Sorcerer Lord at 110 is too cheap, Rob. I'm saying it now. 110 is insane value for a Chaos Sorcerer Lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got magical. I wouldn't say magical dominance, but you've got Kairos can has the Lord of Change ability to he can change the lowest dice to match the highest dice when he casts, and he can cast the War Scroll spells of people around him. So you can guarantee the reroll hits and wounds from the Chaos Sorcerer Lord's War Scroll, or you can do the Great Brainshaven trick in Casper's list, for example, which we saw on the stream a few months ago. And the range, the 6-inch pre-game move means that you just add 6 inches to the range of all of your spells. So you're not trying to get out of an 18-inch Bolt of Tzeentch, you're trying to get out of a 24-inch Bolt of Tzeentch. Geminids becomes 34 inches. Darkfire Demon Rift becomes 29 inches. Gift of Change through a portal comes 45 inches, Rob.
Which is a flat 6 mortal wounds and turns a slain model into a spawn, which is pretty key. Agreed. Yeah, some phenomenal range, but quite unique, right? We've seen it play time and time again. We know that once it's buffed up, it flies off into your opponent's face, and it's just deal with me. And I think that's kind of the key problem that it plays, and it's the way it plays as well. Although watching two Archeons dance around each other yesterday was frustrating beyond all measure, but was also quite fun. It looked like the Mortal Realms version of La La Land is how I envisioned it going to bed last night, and I did go to sleep dreaming of those two Archeons circling each other like two Spider-Men pointing.
See, I like Gift of Change in Host Duplicitous because you generate the spawn and then your opponent can't retreat from it, which is cute.
Yeah, really
and
nice.
Just like this, it's for the creative player. It's like, what can't you do? So, for example, just the nature of the rules interactions with Archeon. The key thing is the keywords. Because Archeon has every Chaos God keyword, you can plug him in and then you can manipulate that. So, for example, he can cast Darkfire Demon Rift, which is a Slaves to Darkness Endless spell and is incredibly powerful. But because he has the Tzeentch keyword, he can use the Destiny dice to be able to automatically cast that spell. So there's just these little rules manipulations and little things, and it's just very oppressive. There's lots of options, and it doesn't look like a proper Warhammer army though when you put it down, Rob. You haven't got some blocks of troops and some archers and a few heroes and maybe some cavalry, have you? You've just got two giant sort of winged demons and supporting cast. It's looking at the table when the army sets up, it's like, okay, how is that going to win a game of Warhammer about objective play? But it does it right, and it does it well.
Really, really well. And one of those key points, actually, yesterday, we were talking about the match from last night. If you want to go back and watch it, so round 5, Stephen played an amazing game where one of the things he didn't do was in turn 4, he didn't do any casting, specifically not to generate enough fate points for his opponent. So his opponent wasn't able to generate enough fate points and put objectives on the board, because really there's a lot of casts in the army. That's kind of the key takeaway. They're casting a lot of spells and they're generating quite quick. We've seen quite common by turn 2 they've put down 20 blue horrors. Sorry, not 20 blue horrors, 10 blue horrors. Obviously you've also generated the spawn, so they kind of scale quite nicely. Their tempo is very weird because they're very aggro, very aggressive, very early, and then they scale really well, which is kind of a little bit different to maybe how you see Fleshy Courts play, where what they'll do is they scale quite heavily at the start. They're like, here's some stuff for free CP, also here's some Ghoul Kings on Terrorgeist, and now we're done. Like that, it just doesn't really. Whereas Tzeentch scales very nicely into the late game. It's got like a very strong early game tempo, but it's still got good tempo in the mid game as well. And I think that's maybe one of the strengths of why it plays so successfully and why it's got such a good win rate. I'm going to put that down because some armies don't suffer. Like when we watched Lumineth Realm Lords play yesterday, when they lost a model, and you could see the army just falling to pieces. But being able to put 10 blue horrors on an objective, which is effectively 20 wounds, is great. Really,
and you can't underestimate the fact that a lot of those Tzeentchian heroes are fast flying heroes as well. So if you've got like a 16-inch move blue scribes, for example, you can 16-inch move, 6-inch run, and then summon wholly within 12. So in the late game, you can go from having one little hero on one objective to putting 10 blue horrors, quick maths, 32 inches away. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like you say, they can generate the points, and then they have the delivery method to then put those bodies where they need. It's like with Khorne, it's all well and good having the points, but if you haven't got fast heroes to put them where you need them, then it's not as good. And then hence, obviously you're summoning from Archeon again, who is big. He's got that big base, so he can get around and is a good summoning platform. So I like that idea around it scaling, because often you do go in, you go shock and awe, turn one, blow some stuff up, and then often you're just holding on and scrabbling. Whereas the summoning does just change the metric on that a little bit.
It's one of the things I think about a lot is what the tempo of the armies are like when they play. Like for coverage, but also for myself when I'm thinking, I'm like, how do they play through? Like, what are going to be the successes? Same when you talk about a book or you do a book review. Like is it all strength early? Like late game, it diminishes. That's one of the things that's most interesting, actually, about the Daughters of Cain list that's currently playing with Marathi and the Snakes. In that it doesn't scale well, but it's got such a strong early game, and it really tips the point into turn 3. It's like, can you actually bowl it over? And it's got a phenomenal early game. It's like, I've got range, I can just keep shooting, you can't kill this model, you can't take any of my synergy away. Really, really strong. So yeah, really, really good. There were some stats, right, from that you put together.
Yes, I'm not sure if you can bring it up on screen. It's on the spreadsheet that you put together for the stat show. Oh, somebody's knocking at my door.
Oh go get it.
Sorry for being unprofessional, everyone.
No, that's fine. That's the best bit. Now me in the chat can just try and guess what we think it might be. Question to Twitch chat: what do we all think Owen's got? I'm guessing it's more Warhammer, but is it Sylvaneth? That's what I'm thinking. A live unboxing. There we go. Pizza. Yeah, with strippers. Owen should have strippers, like just to the side all the time, but bored ones, like lazy. Like in the back room. Like I imagine Owen's office is like the back room of a strip club where the strippers just like hanging out with him. They're like, "Oh, Owen, you're the best. Do you want a cup of tea?" That's what I imagine they are. But let's not talk about that when he comes back. Hello, bud.
What do you mean? Don't talk about that when he comes back.
Do we get a live unboxing?
Oh, shall we? Hold on. It better not be that huge rotating fist I ordered the other day. I saw yesterday, Rob, ASMR Lumineth unboxing is the thing, right?
I saw that. If no one's watched, I don't know what the stats are on that, but an ASMR Curse City unboxing would be my future. Yes,
okay, what have we got? I really don't know what this is going to be, actually. Ooh! Oh, look at that!
What is it?
It's a completely unnecessary purchase of Beastgrave. Look at that!
Beastgrave? What are you getting into? Why have you got Beastgrave?
I don't know. I just thought it seemed like a good deal on the internet, so I just was like, yes. Well, I actually, Rob, I don't think you can get the Kanothi warband anywhere in outside of this box yet. So that's my reason. And I was going to send the Beasts of Chaos to my Beasts of Chaos player to sort of cheer him up and get him to come back to the game. We've lost Blagan back to Kings of War, Rob.
God's sakes.
Yeah, so I was going to send them to him as a gift, but he's already got them. Anyway, let's go.
Was it a drunk Owen purchase or an intended Owen purchase?
It was drunk. I was drunk on life. That's what happened, and I went Beastgrave. I went full.
I didn't know that drunk warhammering was a thing, but it fucking is. Dan, loads of people are like, "Yeah, I got really drunk the other night, and now I own all of a Marine army." Like, what is going on? The game where Beasts of Chaos are actually good? No idea. And also, so can you roll a crit? You can obviously go over to his website. He's a lovely fella, really, really good at Underworlds as well, and he'll talk to you all about it. I truly, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, don't care about it like so much. I care about that less maybe than the football drama at the minute, which is entertaining me. Wow. Okay, Owen, we were talking about stats. Sorry.
Yeah, let's get back to the program. Jesus, I'm sorry about that, everybody. Yes, so I'm not sure if you managed to find that spreadsheet because it's got it quite nicely detailed on there. But yeah, effectively, what we've got is I've had a look at all of the Tzeentch Archeon players, and it's always interesting to see what they lost against and what they played. So a couple of headlines here, Rob. Every single Tzeentch Archeon player played at least 2 Tzeentch Archeon mirror matches. So, I mean, I'm sure they all needed to lie down. I know that Alan had a migraine before his game 5.
I had a
But I think,
migraine covering their game. Like, bless their hearts. So yeah.
yeah, it's which is pretty wild, right? But it's also kind of good because you're like, look, this is what we all have to face when you face it. Stephen Follows was the only 5-0, so he took out the tournament, and his path to victory was he beat the 80 Sentinels in round 1, Rob, on Star Strike, which is pretty amazing.
I mean,
And then
I feel like that's a great. I think that's not an easy game, but like we talked about, one of the advantages those reroll 6s smashed against the Sentinels. That's gonna at least half their output, right?
yeah, but I think that the conversation always comes up, and the Gutsman in the chat saying Demon Rift. The way to beat it, and this is probably a bit of a meme now, like just shoot the characters, is don't shoot the characters when you play against Tzeentch Archeon. Just shoot or kill everything else. You kill all the scoring units. You saw that in the game, Morton's game against Gutsman the other weekend, where basically he was left with Archeon and a few odds and sods, and what Stuart had left with a couple of Yetis here and there and a Frostlord, he was able to win. Anyway, that's an aside. So he beat Lumineth. He then got a Tzeentch mirror into Inferno, who I think's in the chat. So he beat a Tzeentch Archeon on Scorched Earth. Then he beat one of our Idoneth players. Then he beat Daughters of Cain, and then he beat Alan's Tzeentch Archeon. So that was his path to victory. But the real headline out of all of it is that so we've got 6 Tzeentch Archeon players, each playing 5 games each. That's 30 games. And only in 1 game did they lose to something that wasn't Tzeentch Archeon.
Wow. And shout out, because that's a man who I would arm wrestle until my arm broke. Dayton O'Bray, the gorgeous firefighter from the north of Canada, descended from the mountains to slap an Archeon to pieces. And he ended up going 4-1, I think, only losing to Rich, I think, with his Seraphon.
Yes. Did,
I mean, that's a tough path to victory. And that Daughters of Cain army is also super competent and really, really good. That being one of the ones that took him out. And then, so they only lost to that Daughters of Cain list or other Tzeentch Archeon lists.
Yes, and I think Inferno's in the chat, and that was the loss that Inferno took was both Tzeentch Archeons in the sword on turn 1. Yes, that's it does create some pretty wild interactions. Also, Inferno, who came in 17th, another little point of note, Rob, here, he put 9 Plague-touched Varangard in the sword in one go.
Wow.
Yeah, in game 3.
Because they're heroes, so he put 9 Varangard in the sword. Wow. that must fucking suck to be on the end of that.
Yeah, I was asked whether they all go in the sword, and then about 3 minutes later, I had the result come in on the result submission. It was kind of instant concession, I think, when 1,000 points of your army goes in. I don't know if he Destiny diced it or if he actually rolled, but yeah, that was Mitch with a Plague Touch list that had to be on the end of that rules interaction, which again is pretty wild. It's this whole blockbuster Warhammer thing I'm banging on about, Rob. It's like these big moments, big plays, like this one interaction, and bang, you're done.
I mean, you could just not put 900 points into a unit, but apparently, apparently we're all doing it. So cool. But yeah, that's rough. That's a rough time. Yeah. Sorry to Mitch for that one.
Yeah, I would also like to put a pin. So basically, our Tzeentch Archeon players, they won the tournament. They came 3rd, 5th, 7th, 17th, and 18th, and there was nothing worse than a 3-2. I'd like to shout out Victor, who I believe is Jaival on TTS. He had to play 3 Tzeentch Archeon mirror matches in a row.
Wow.
Games 3, 4, and 5. So I'm
Did
sure
he?
that he's.
What was his win rate on that? Was it like 0-3, 2-1?
He beat Gutsman in round 3, and then he had a whole day of Tzeentch Archeon mirrors yesterday, and he lost them both. It looks like he lost to, I don't know, like literally the last round 4, you had 4 Tzeentch Archeon mirror matches, and round 5 you had 4 Tzeentch Archeon mirror matches. So it was amazing the way the draw went. If with a slightly different draw, you could have probably seen Tzeentch Archeon just across the top 6, apart from Mac, our guy Mac, with his Barrack Thring list, which we'll come back to. But yeah, I mean, that's enough to make you want to quit Warhammer, isn't it?
Well, so here's the question. I'm throwing it over to the Twitch chat as well, and Owen, I'm throwing it over to you. So doing really well. Yeah, we've seen there wasn't as many Seraphon lists, but there still were some, and there was like Fangs lists with loads of skinks. We saw that play like super, like we saw that play. My question to you all is, and question to you, Owen, fans at home, like and subscribe, is: do you think that it's too good, or do you think it's just a problem that needs to be unpicked? Like, where do you settle on it? Because it's obnoxiously good, like as we've seen there. And we're going to see it in real world as well, because it's not even very expensive to put together. Kairos and Archeon, like as a little bundle, it's still less than 200 quid in English money. And then you just Chaos Sorcerer Lords, literally any model you find lying around, and some Carrick Acolytes or some horrors, whatever you choose. Like Be'lakor, maybe it doesn't make it in anymore, but yeah. So like, how do you feel about that? Like, where do you sit? Do you think it's too good? Because you can put that on a tabletop. You probably get that painted up in, like, I don't know, 2 weeks if you do a crap job on Archeon, and I encourage you to do so. Yeah, what do you think?
It's a funny one, and Tubbs in the chat makes a point as well. People complaining about Croak, etc. Tzeentch Archeon is just as oppressive. It is a bit of a funny one. Like, there's always the new big bad, isn't there? And obviously the trends and kind of fashion within gaming kind of dictates that, you know, people move from one thing to another. I think we've got the Grimghast Reaper problem here, Rob. You make him, you tweak his War Scroll, you make him more expensive, and all you're doing is kicking Slaves to Darkness players in the balls, right? In the same way as Legions of Nagash players taking Grimghast Reapers made Grims. You know, I'm not sure what happened in the end with that. Did they put the points up? Did they limit the unit sizes? I'm not really sure, but there was a time when
they put the points up on Grimghasts.
Yeah,
they put the points
up. Which just hurts Nighthorn. It's the keywords. It's the way the keywords work. But he's inherently a lord of, you know, he has chaos runes in his shield. You know, for all the gods, you can't take the keywords away from him. So I don't know really. I think the pack definitely gave him an advantage. There weren't very many missions where you started incredibly far away. And there was a lot of benefits for, you know, sort of body count, you know, shifting objectives with battle line. There wasn't really. So I think that there wasn't much Ideneth. And I think Ideneth, as the pure sort of gatekeeper army, I think with more Ideneth, much like we saw Steve Follers versus Sven in Battle of Copenhagen, you know, all the sharks. With Sentinels, with Salamanders, with the Stalkers, they're all relying on 6s to hit, which Archeon loves, whereas all of that shooting coming out of
all the
sharks, but also like the missions benefited bodies. Archeon can tear through bodies, and IDK don't have a huge amount of bodies. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking out loud.
Yeah, no, I think because it's one of those things that people are going to have to ask themselves on what they can go away. I think one of the key strategies that you can do when you are on the tabletop is try to generally avoid him. I know, Rob, how can I move something that moves so far and can auto charge? I hear you. I understand. Like, it's problematic in that situation. You're probably just going to have to give up some bait. You're going to have to give something up and put him in a position he doesn't want to be, and you're going to have to plan that in deployment. You're also going to have to try and find a way to go and grab the rest of his army, because the rest of his army is low. Like, it's just some Carrick Acolytes hanging out, and then it's a dumb bird at the back of the board. And that dumb bird is annoying, but you're going to want to clear all that off as soon as possible. When then you do that, and the other thing is when he is dragged away from all of his buffs, getting those buffs off next turn is actually really challenging. He normally loses the reroll saves which is really important because he has to be very close to the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Like, depending on what goes to the spell portal, like he might get some other stuff. So your real trick is turn 1, you just got to eat it, and there really is no other choice to eating it turn 1. And if you could get to him turn 1, that's also quite nice, but that's fairly rare. But if you are able to take the turn, like drop some rocks on him, do something. Don't forget he heals, but just clearing out the acolytes, I think, is a good strategy. Now, how you do that with your different armies, that's going to be on you to kind of like work through. But I think that's one of the strategies we've seen work quite nicely, right?
Yeah, and it's very difficult because now that there's the way that this army plays is kind of set. Effectively, there's each the I want to stop saying each Archeon. The player taking the list. They make him incredibly relevant, incredibly early. He gets all his buffs up. He pushes you into you have this, massive god that can hammer loads of stuff. And without the rerolls, he really does suffer. So early doors, he's got reroll saves. He's got +1 to hit, +1 to wound from Infusion Arcanum. He's got rerolling hits and wounds, rerolling saves. I think that the missions, so they get pushed in and are super relevant. If you can survive that initial hit, then I think you are in a reasonable place, because often he's then moved out of buff range from the pieces that are giving him those early buffs. So it's a case of you need a good screen to protect your good stuff. So if he is being made relevant and being pushed into your army, all he's killing is chaff. You want him just to kill chaff. And then you can strike back. But I think Flamers, Rob, we saw in a game between Antu, didn't we? Eternal Conflagration. You turtle up in the corner, you offer him up a load of pinks, and then you flame him off, because they're not relying on sixes proccing something. They're just lots of high quality, good attacks.
Well, a good question from Luke Willoughby is, why is the answer always shooting? Why not chop the shit with axes? And there's another point from Iron Gutsman, which kind of ties into that. If you take the first turn and shoot the Sorcerer Lord off, you're in business. Now, obviously that's key. Getting rid of that Sorcerer Lord first turn is really, really important. But I think the point from from Luke Willoughby is that he's a monster. He is only a combat warrior. He's 800 points of combat output. Like, that's what he is. Like, his combat profile is phenomenal. Even if you kill him in close combat with Thy Will Be Done, which is on his War Scroll, he'll fight you and murder whatever you threw into him. And finding something that can take him out isn't easy in Tzeentch. Probably the key takeaway from him going in Tzeentch as going in anything else, he's naturally -1 to hit in close combat. Like, that's super important, like, to think about, that changes the numbers very significantly straight away. Like, and then, if he's got the Chaos Sorcerer Lord buff up, reroll saves is insane. 4 up against mortal wounds, crazy. Reroll 6s to hit against him, and most of the good abilities proc on 6s. So, you would want the answer to be fight him, but really, you also probably should never be able to fight him. He's he's not really like a split discipline or a split role unit like we see with something like Nagash at that 800 point point as well. Nagash isn't a phenomenal caster, and then he's okay in a fight. Like, he's pretty good in a fight, but he's a phenomenal caster. That's how he really dominates the board space, and then is great in a fight. But Archeon's got none of that casting strength really, and it's all pushed into being a hard fuck. Like, that's what he is. Yeah, like, he's just ready to rumble. And it's hard to find 800 points in your army, or 400 points. It would be weird if I had a 400-point unit that can take out 800 points. Yeah? That yes. That would be weird. So it's hard to say. I liked what we saw Steven do, where he just charged a bunch of ogre monsters in and did the impact hits and be like, I'm just going to give you mortal wounds before we even fight. But yeah, like, the answer has to be at least whittle him down before you charge him in with some range shooting, I think. I think that has to be the answer.
Yeah,
but just take everything else out.
Yeah, there's a nice question in the chat there. Where is my raccoon has just answered it from Warhammer Rob, which is what is his threat range turn 1? 32 inches.
And a guaranteed 32 inches.
Yes, if you have some Destiny dice, because obviously you can Destiny dice the 12, or you can roll 1 dice. And then you have, obviously, Kairos's ability. The key point really is that you have all this, and we're talking about the big man, and he can go in and he can wallop stuff, and he's hard to kill, and he has his mortal wound save. But then you've got the tech pieces to support him. So, for example, you have Kairos's once per game rig. So even if somebody does line up 400 points of Hearthguard Berserkers and wants to charge them in, then Kairos can just, even if they're 3 inches away, if your opponent rolls one single one on their charge roll, then Kairos can reach out and turn it into another one and make it a double one. And the Oracle, the spell that does 6 mortal wounds. Okay, great. All of your little heroes are under threat, but similarly, you put the spawn down before you take any models away, so you can literally just tag the unit, the big combat unit that's potentially going to go in and kill somebody like Archeon. So it's got loads. It's got loads, and there's loads that we haven't even touched on. I'm sure things like the Screamers, Rob. Okay, so in Host Arcanum you get 6 free Screamers. It's a hero phase summon, so they still get to move.
160 points.
Yeah, and the fact that they're a 16-inch move and they don't have the normal summoning condition of you can't move in the movement phase because it's hero phase. So similarly, you can pop them out, give them +1 save, an additional pip of rend, and then they're great into wizards. And we're in a Magic Dom meta, so there's just all these extra little bits.
And that's where we should talk about. Let's talk about the endless spell choice of the weekend. It's changed over the past 6 months, and that endless spell choice is Dark Fire Demon Rift. We saw it do phenomenal work on the live stream over the weekend, and I'm sure there were some examples of it doing even better. Now, it basically does more mortal wounds for every unit it moves over, for every wizard within 12 inches. And like Owen has said, in a Magic Dominator meta, oh boy.
Well, it's not even just wizards, it's also endless spells as well, Rob. So all the other endless spells. So if you put down your portals, you're going to get another +1. So yeah, it moves really far as well. It's I think it's set up wholly within 9 and then moves 12. But then when you factor it in with the pre-game move, it's 29-inch threat range. So here we go. Luke, Casper did 52 mortal wounds to my army in a turn. It didn't even have any wizards from one spell. Oh my God.
Luke, it's not funny, but it is also funny. So yeah, paint up. If you're at home and you want to run this list or you want to do stuff, also paint up that Darkfire Demon Rift. It was doing some phenomenal work over the weekend. Great tech, great range, and then being able to use those cheated dice. Probably the key problem with the book. If I was to suggest anything, I would like to see Tzeentch dice turned into rerolls. Changes the game up very significantly, and I think that would be really, really important. From the agenda being an automatic charge and being able to get all those extra attacks, to guaranteed casts, to a bunch of other stuff. Having them as rerolls, I think, would be a healthier game, but that's not really what the Stat Center is meant to be about. So, phenomenal output from them. What else did we see do well over the weekend, Owen?
Well, I don't mean to sort of give myself too much of a pat on the back, but my heart list, which is the Caradron Overlords list, that went 5-0 and came in second. Just missed out on a couple of points due to some secondaries, I believe. So I don't want to get his name wrong. It's Mac. I believe it's Marcus Fredrickson. I'm pretty sure it's Marcus. And he's been rocking a variety of different Thring lists through the course of these tournaments. I think he's cropped up in the Grand Hammer tournament, Battle of Copenhagen, and now he's brought it to Hammer Time. And I don't really like KO very much, Dwarves with Guns. But this is cool. And this is different, and he went through some seriously difficult challenges on the way to 5 wins. So this is a Barrack Thring list, which allows him to bring in 1/4. I'm going to put the list in the chat actually while I ramble on. Let me see if I can find it. This allows you to bring in 1 in every 4 units can be Dwarden. So I've seen some fun lists where people put Gotrek in. But I think that the way that Mac's done it, he has a Rune Smiter and 20 Hearthguard Berserkers with the broad axes. So he's obviously knows that Archeon's around, and he's not gone for those pole axes because reroll 6s and no rend is just it neuters that weapon loadout so much. I'm going to put the list in the chat now. But yeah, so we're looking at an Endrin Master with Endrin Harness, a Celestant Prime, a Rune Smiter with the Forge Key, 3 units of 10 Arcanauts, 2 Grunstock Gun Haulers with Sky Cannons, a unit of 3 Aether Wings, then 20 Hearthgob. Oh, I was wrong. My bad. He has actually got pole axes. Yeah, he's got 20 Hearthgob with pole axes, and then a big Ironclad with the Deal Breaker Battering Ram and the Great Sky Cannon. And he's in at 1970, so he's probably going to get a nice triumph there as well. Let me see if I can put that in the chat if people would like to see this. But yeah, Barrack Thring. I wrote some Thring lists because it seems like a little bit more on the acceptable end of Caradron Overlords. There's a lot of Barrack Zilfin buzzing around, throwing out Skaven endless spells. But this is cool, right? Thring, you've got 1 in every 4 Edwardin. You get a really nice ability, which is you get to choose 3 units at the start of the battle, Rob, and your whole army rerolls 1s to hit against them. So you're saving loads of CP that way. And then once per battle, 1 unit can get exploding 6s. So that's quite nice. And again, you can put that onto your Hearthguard if you wanted to. So the 6s would be 2 mortal wounds apiece and then an exploding into another hit. And then, the Prime is the new thing. He's got so much pick up and drop down. Obviously, the Hearthguard can tunnel up and pop up anywhere outside of 9. So it would be a real headache to play against, right, Rob? So much options. You don't really know where anything's coming from. I think one of the key points is, and actually there's a really nice kind of comparative to 40k as well, if anyone happens to be both game systems. But if not, you have to push, and the reason I bring it up is obviously KO very shooty, 40k generally very shooty, and there's obviously been that significant shift. You have to physically push people off the objectives. It's all good shooting them off the objectives, but that means you haven't moved onto the objectives the turn before. So you're going to need those units that can move onto the objectives, fight in your turn, take things off the objective, and then be there to score at the end of your turn. I know that's really obvious, for a load of Age of Sigmar players who've been happening a long time, but the KO book plays very differently to most other books in that it really doesn't have those units to put in. And putting both the Prime and the Hearthguard Berserkers in the list to be able to do that job, I think is significant and really good. I liked it. I talked about this, not with that list, but there was another list that I looked at which also had a unit of Hearthguard Berserkers in the list. It might have been the same one, but I said on the review show, I was like, I like that. Or no, the other version was I like the Fire Slayers I like the Fire Slayers with the 2 gun haulers.
The 2 gun haulers in as well. I like that. There's that mixed arms army, so they've got more utility across the board, and it's really fun to see that list do really, really well and go 5-0 because it's got loads of good stuff. The Prime is an interesting choice, especially at the moment. I think generally he's great. I think some people think he's a little overcosted points wise. Really good for what he does, but once he goes down, normally isn't long for the world.
Yeah, but I think that prime time, the threat of prime time is enough to mess with people sometimes. And obviously the longer he keeps him off the board, the more hit he's going to be when he comes on, because he gets +2 attacks, I believe, for every battle round he's off the board. So I'd imagine that the Fire Slayers, the Hearthguard, come down relatively early, but then the Prime is the late game threat. But I would worry about output, Rob, but I'm just looking at what he beat. He beat 2 of the Blight King swamp lists. So we're talking about 40 Blight Kings. We're talking about 200 wounds on a 4-up save. He beat your favourite, the 70 Pink Horrors.
I know, on shifting objectives, which I honestly don't understand, but that's impressive.
He killed 150 horrors over a double turn. He also...
Go on, sorry, you carry on.
He seems to have been paired into bodies like swamp lists. He played against Mathieu, who brought 110 storm vermin and 40 clan rats with double bell, and he managed to rinse all that off. And then he beat a big war list as well. So he was fighting bodies, and he was out. He was never outgunned, but he was always outbodied, and he's found a way to win there. So
we've talked about this, haven't we? We've talked about the DPS check that some armies are forcing you to make. Hearthguard list, the 70 Pink Horrors, like Mathieu's list with all the Skaven, and there is a load of output in that KO book. Bringing the Fire Slayers in as well, even more output. You've got lots. I think one of the really interesting points is you can put the Fire Slayers into one place, and you can just bring all the guns to bear into that area of the board as well, and you can really clear out the major threats. Or you can use the KO to take out the buff pieces that support the hordes. I would say that probably is one of the things that we saw against the Pink Horrors, because not being able to use any CP to make those horrors immune to Battle Shock, I think he would have just gone, cool, half a unit, and really dropped it down in its effectiveness, and like you said, over a double turn. but having that range to take those characters out would have been very, very important. And just being able to project all of the power in one place, whereas in combat armies, you don't generally tend to do that. That's what I think was so impressive about Stephen. We saw him in Game 2 of the coverage with all of the Thunder Tusks and the Stonehorn. He was able to just apply so much damage over a couple of phases. So he was able to be like, I'm putting all the shooting in here, I'm going to put all the combat in here, and now that side of the board is mine. And I think that's why maybe we'll have seen it do so well. Sounds very interesting, though, and I would love to have seen some of the matches.
Yeah, and it just goes again to how it's a similar kind of looking sort of footprint army as the hosts Arcanum we've been talking about. You know, these super elite, low model count armies that are able to, you know, project and put all of their stuff in one place at one time, doing really well, versus all of these very body heavy sort of lists. And fair play to all the players, like getting through all of their games in 3 hours with you know 100+ models. I was pretty impressed that we got good clean results on all of them. Look at that. Guy. See you later, Guy. This was Guy playing in his first ever tournament, and he got a win and a draw and 3 losses with his Skaven. So I was super happy for Zydy Guy. So yeah, well done, mate. I think. Is there anything else we want to cover? I mean, we could have a very quick look, because I'm aware of the time. We could have a quick look and just let people know about what the best results were for all the different factions. Yeah,
I think that would be nice for people to hear us talking about some other point. Just while you take a moment to look at that, I got an announcement to make. It's going up, I think, publicly, and I'm pretty certain this is like confirmed. Just double check. But if it's not true, then throw a rock at me when you see me. But pretty certain Super Series returns 23rd of May. Sunday, 23rd of May, we have our first matchup, which is going to be Marauders versus Legio 9. And then the weekend after, it's a double booker. It's going to be 2 different teams, 2 different matchups. So Dragon Slayers versus Beast Midlands, and the Bad Moon Loons versus WS10 on the 30th. Still to be confirmed in some places, but pretty certain. The OK is there. But all that stuff will be going up online in the future, but I'll put that out. And then the month after, and then there's semi-finals, and it kind of runs week in, week out. So it's semi-finals, straight to the final, it's on. And then month after in June, a whole bunch. So again, keep your eye on the Age of Sigmar, on the Honest Wargamer and the TSN socials. A whole bunch of events for people to come and play at the TSN arena in real life, because restrictions will be off. And we've got the venue set up. So looking forward to that. But again, check the socials for actual times and information. I'm working hard on packs and other things. What is banned? Great question. Straight off the bat, I'm just going to ban Bound Endless Spells in my own tournament packs. That's right, I'm going to be a weird, freaky TO who just bound Endless Spells. And do you know what? If you don't like it, fuck off. That's what I'm going to say.
So all
don't give a fuck.
All that hard work, painting all that terrain, Rob, you're going to be able to, it'll be like the birth of your child when you reopen those doors to the arena. One little, I think we got Mac in the chat there, just one last rounding out the KO. He said he'd like to point out that Grudge Target, which is reroll 1s to hit, plus exploding 6s on an Ironclad, together with the Aether Gold or the Triumph on the wounds, is so mental. So I think that's maybe where he's getting a lot of his output from. But
good shout too, Mac.
Super Series, Rob. This is feels
super like serious.
Super serious. Let's get serious. Let's get serious.
Yeah. So again, keep your eyes on the socials. That's but a month away. As long as those as everything pans out the way I'm hoping. I've got the okay from the teams. The teams I want to do a shout out to have been phenomenal. Coaches and players. It's been moved around all sorts. So I'm pretty certain it's anyway. More on that in the future. I just thought I'd mention it to people because everyone loves a bit of T-Sports.
Also, that's super exciting. I mean, I'm sure there's some people watching who've never actually seen you, covering sort of, let's put it in funny ears, real Warhammer. IRL Warhammer. They've never seen you and the team cover a whole event and being able to bounce between different tables and covering some of the top players in the UK. So it'll be a good time, right? It'll be an excellent time.
That's the hope. So it's still because we're still in this kind of weird transitional phase with lockdowns and everything else. So you're still waiting on. I mean, it could all change, but that's fine. I'm excited about it, and it's at least fun to kind of announce it and talk about it. But anyway, what about the stats here, Owen?
So yes, I've got basically the results for just for if you're going to be thinking of going to a tournament, you're going to go and play with a mate, and they're taking one army and you're taking another, and just to manage your expectations, and give you some idea of knowing when you're overperforming inside your army. So, Seraphon and Daughters of Cain, they both got some 4-1 results this weekend. There were actually a couple of 2-3s for Seraphon. The very skink heavy builds didn't do so well this weekend. Then Cities of Sigmar, we had the Tempest Eye list, really nice Dwarven heavy Tempest Eye, went 3-2, and he was hovering around. This is Guillaume. He was hovering around the top tables all weekend. Just came undone in a couple of games there. Fire Slayers, Luke Willoughby was the top with a 3-2. Deepkin went 3-2. Lumineth, we had again 3-2 for Lumineth was their best result. I think a lot of the Lumineth players stayed away because they wanted to play the new book. And then our one Stormcast player here, he got a 2-3, which seems pretty. Yeah, Forgive in the chat came 10th in his list, his Seraphon list. He went 4-1, I believe, and he had Knight Incanter and 6 Croxigor, got in the top 10, Rob.
That's incredible. I saw that, 6 Croxigor and an Incanter on the Arcanum Dais. I was like, okay.
See, that's the Seraphon player, like, nerfing himself, He's, like, basically playing, like, 500 points down or something. No, I'm being silly. He did really good all weekend. Smashed it. And then in terms of Chaos, obviously, we had Tzeentch, we had 5-0, and we had several. I mean, across all the Tzeentch builds, including the Multitudinous Host, the 70 Pinks went 4-1. Like, 4 Fate Skimmers and 48 Screamers went 3-2. And then, all the Tzeentch Archeons, we had a 5-0, 3 4-1s, and 2 3-2s. Shout out to Tobias, actually, with the Fate Skimmers and the Screamer list. He picked up the List Whisperer Award. Darren's List Whisperer Award for his favourite list. All the Tzeentch doing really well. Then Khorne and Slanesh 3-2 with their bests. Tavi came in 3-2 with his Lurid Haze list. Skaven got a 3-2. That was our guy Mache with all the Storm Vermin. Slaves to Darkness, the Plague Touch.
Quick question: where do you think Skaven sit at the minute? Because I think Skaven could play quite well into some of the top threats with a bunch of Storm Fiends, like maybe 3/3s. I know that's a lot, but I was just thinking about. I was looking at Skaven list the other day, and I was like, what's happening with Skaven? I don't think you can do the castle build well. They can still put bodies out there, but I think you can midfield fire a bunch of stuff. Archeon gets thrown in. Those Storm Fiends are just going to be like, oh, let's go, baby.
Yeah. But if you're going Sky heavy, then you're never going to get. Well, you're very small chance of getting more and more warp power off, and without more, it's the Storm Fiends, the Scryer Acolytes, whatever you. It's just I don't think they've got enough output. A question from Mac on his beloved KO. He wanted to see how the other KO lists did. We ended up with the Zilfin lists. Basically we had 2 3-2s and 2 2-3s. So you are definitely our admiral at the moment. Okay, Mac, you are.
Go on, Mac. Massive congratulations to Mac, because even though Stephen took out the event, Mac went 5-0 with KO with a very different KO list. So that's really, really important. So he should be loads of congratulations. And I wonder if he's building the army in real life, because I'd love to see that play in some tournaments as well. Sorry, Owen, after you.
No, you're okay. You're all good, man. And then just rounding out Chaos, Beasts of Chaos, Alex came in. He got a 2-3 with Beasts, which is basically the same as winning the tournament. I think 2-3 with Beasts in that match.
11 out of 10 performance there. That's what peak performance looks like in the Beasts of Chaos chat.
Matt Grace really overperformed. I kind of trailed and said in the list show that I felt he'd do quite well, and he got 3 wins, a draw, and a loss with a Blister Skin Flesh Eaters list. I think he finished in the top 12. Maybe I think he finished 11th or 12th. Top 15. I'm sure he finished. A bit of a disappointing weekend for the Bone Reapers. Even though spamming shitloads of Mortec on shifting objectives and those sorts of missions would do really well. But the best result for Bone Reapers was a 2-3. And then more tribes got a 3-2 Gits, Gloomspike Gits. There was a Gits player, the guy with the 120 stabbers and the mixed arms. He was up around the top tables all weekend. Actually, you know what? Let's give him a shout out. If you go 3-2 with Gits, I think you have to have a name check, don't you?
Really good, really good. Don't forget an event in Australia about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. We had the biggest contingent of Gits players we've seen in a very long time. I think there were 6 players at the event, and it was the largest faction in attendance. And the best we saw was a 3-2. So I think it was Morton, wasn't it? Was it not Morton with the 3-2?
Yeah, I think it might be Morton Paulson. Yeah, no, he went 2-3. I'm pretty sure there's a 3-2 there, unless my notes are completely wrong. I'm sure they're not wrong. But yeah, all of the destruction, Bone Splitters. There were lots of 2-3s. There was a Pete Pratt with Top Iron Jaws with a 3-2. So yeah, but all of those destruction books, nobody went better than 3-2 there. I just want to try and find this Gits player. Did I get my notes wrong and he went 2-3? I hope not. Because then that undermines all the other information I've been bollocking on about for the last several hours. I'll dig it out. Maybe I'm going a bit snowblind here or something. Yes. Anyway, but yeah, that was it. I think the only 5-0s were out of Chaos and Order. The only 4-1s were outside in the Chaos and Order books. So that kind of rings true with what we've been talking about over the last few months, right? That is that those are the stronger Grand Alliances, and they're more heavily represented.
I agreed. I think there's still a lot of room in the again, shout out who's going to be on the show. So got an exciting Age of Sigmar week. Obviously, we've got the show tonight where we'll be breaking down Be'lakor. So do join us in for that. So Broken Realms Be'lakor. Wednesday, I've got Sam Morgan on talking about a tournament he's going up to, and obviously Sam, if you go check out his YouTube channel as well. The AOS List Doctor, great YouTube channel, loads of great content on there as well. He's going to be breaking it up. We've also got Stuart Iron Gutsman on Thursday. We're just going to be picking his brain, and it's him who did a tweet yesterday who said he feels like there are just some super lists that operate in their kind of S tier, and then there are some that are kind of and the gulf between them and A is quite significant. I think looking at some of the stuff at the weekend, I would like to think that feels fairly true. I feel like that but there's still a lot of player agency. I am going to argue. I think there is. There is still a lot of choice making. You saw that in the Tzeentch Archeon mirror match, I would say, in Game 5 yesterday. And you also saw that in the phenomenal game between Stephen, where he played with his all of his Thunder Tusks into the 180 Skinks. I think that there's some player agency to look at there as well. So while there is some very strong lists you can pilot, I think you still have to develop your skill sets to play with those lists and play them consistently. So I think that's a good takeaway from the weekend as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think people shouldn't get too bogged down with feeling that this is amazing and I'm never going to beat it and blah 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 blah. Player skill is always a massive thing. So taking what would be seen as a mid-tier book and going 3-2 is huge for players. I've learned that over time. Not to be. Yeah, don't be too disheartened if you don't, smash a load of games. Learning is the big one. I think learning about the game, learning what the opponent's armies do, and the only way you do that is by playing in tournaments. So, I don't really think that was a particularly salient point, but I said it anyway, Rob. I said it anyway.
Okay. Well, listen, time's getting on. It's been fun. Looking forward to that. We'll be back next week with a bunch of stats, which is going to be really cool. We'll have a breakdown, so let us know. And then also we'll be back with the stats. That's right. That's a mental health joke in there. So, but if you are feeling low, also obviously always message people and tell people that you're feeling low, because you're brilliant listener and viewer, or any of you. You're brilliant people, and you deserve love. So remember that about yourselves. Owen, you got any shout-outs?
I do.
Yeah, because we need to talk about the beer bash, right?
Yeah, I just want to shout out. He's in the chat, and he was pestering me all week to get it done, and I had a crazy busy week. But I just want to shout out to Luke Willoughby. I gave him a shout out at the end of the tournament, but he pestered me, and we put together a thing. We made a virtual pub in the Discord. And on Saturday night, Luke's the landlord, and he did drinking games, and he got loads of the people together. And we're always playing behind screens, but he set it up so we a lot of people were using their videos. So you got to see the face of all these people that we've been, we've got to know over the last year. And we drank some really horrendous beverages and answered Warhammer quizzes. And I just think everyone had a really good time. And I think that, this community has been amazing all the way through lockdown. And that was just a really nice little thing, that because often you finish the tournament and then you just have this sudden low because everyone's, you're intensely playing games for 10 to 12 hours, and then you don't have that thing where everyone goes off to the curry house or the pub together and chats about their games. So it was amazing to have that. And there's lots of people in the chat there saying how much they enjoyed it. And it was really fun, and we're going to continue doing that. So I wanted to make sure that Luke gets a shout, and I'm going to shout out all the players, because myself, and I'm also going to shout out Dan Arnold, Age of Sigmar, Colonel Cabbage, and Cole as my assistant TOs all weekend. We tried to implement some new stuff around round timings and game resolution and time management and stuff. And I think everyone took that on board, and we had a really solid weekend of Warhammer. So props to the players, props to my fellow TOs, props to the spare players who jumped in and helped. Just you're all great, and we'll keep on doing it, right?
And props to Owen for running events for the community for the past year. A true Warhammer hero. I honestly don't know how Games Workshop haven't given him a trophy. And if they don't, we'll get him one. Easy. We'll crowdfund him a trophy. No problem. Let's go. Big OJ. Big Owen Jackson in the house, everyone. Do join me again tonight. Obviously, Nathan, Dan, and James tonight to discuss Be'lakor. Also, James' newfound love for Khorne. We'll get that out of the way. He absolutely adores them now, apparently. Can't get enough. We'll find out if Nathan, with the lockdown restrictions easing and sun coming out, has been hiding in more gardens. He may well have. We're not really sure. He also is playing a second, maybe even a third game of TTS. So excited to hear his thoughts. Owen, you've been a delight. Twitch chat, you're my shout out. Thanks to everyone on Patreon. I couldn't live without you. So thank you to you. Podcast bros and everyone else. Just look after yourself. Stay healthy. Stay hydrated. We'll go raid someone. Let's go raid someone right now. Owen, you get the pick. Do you want to raid someone Warhammery or something weird?
I like to get weird in my own time, so let's stick to something Warhammery, please, Rob.
Okay, all right. Do you want to go for someone, not many people watching something, or do you want to go for a big stream? Your choice.
Let's go for. You've always got to support the small guy, or the small girl. So let's go and raid somebody who's not got a huge amount of viewers, and it'll be fun for them.
Okay. Well, there's someone painting left-handed. Don't forget our new raid thing where we always get in there and we ask them for tufts. Hopefully we get the tuft money from these people. We're not going to Source Painted, but I love Source Painted. We're all in love with Source Painted. He's the fuck boy of painting in Age of Sigmar 40k, and we love him. He's great. So big love to him. You guys are all great. Thanks very much. Love you loads. See you soon.